Hello, welcome all of you, and good morning, everyone. A brief word about me. I am Professor Kavita Singh. I work for the Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi, a psychologist by training, um, master's from Delhi University, and PhD from FMS. And I basically deal with the courses in the area of behavioral sciences, talking about human behavior. And today I have been given the responsibility to talk about one of the very important component of human behavior, which is interpersonal communication. Uh, Communication is the hallmark of everything that happens in our life. In fact, one of the studies had also proved that more than 90% of conflicts that we have, the disagreements that we have in life with people around us, is because of, either communication failure or because of miscommunication. So miscommunication happens when we don't understand what we are talking to each other. The message that I am passing on to you is not being understood by you because of certain reasons, the noises around you. But communication failure happens because there is a block somewhere. The channel through which we are trying to pass on the communication is not working, or maybe I speak in a language which you don't understand, as a result of which, even though I may keep on talking for half an hour, but there is a failure of communication because the message that you are not able to comprehend or translate this information that is reaching you. The point is, the cause of the most of the problems in our life vis-a-vis other people is because of poor communication. And the communication, therefore, is one of the most important factors which affects our relationship with people. There are various ways of understanding communication, and there are different models, different theories. What I thought today was, let me take you in a different direction altogether, and let's try to understand this entire process of interpersonal communication by through a model, which is a very, very interesting model in psychology, and which basically talks about we as personalities. So me and you as different personalities. So what happens in this entire process of communication when these two personalities, which may be entirely different from each other because of certain reasons, which we'll try to identify a while from now, we are not able to speak at the common platform. We are not able to communicate at the common platform, because of which there are a lot of differences between us. And also because of this difficult way of transacting our business or communicating with other people, we also develop certain positions with respect to self and with respect to other people as well. So and that those positions also influence the way I'm going to communicate with my friend or my spouse or my child or my colleague or my students or my bosses, my superiors in my organization. And then we are wondering as to what has gone wrong and where. So let's try in next 40-45 minutes, let's try to find out uh, as to where possibly things could have gone wrong. So the model that I'm going to use, some of you might be aware of this model, which is given by Eric Berne. The model is known as transactional analysis, TA in short. Now, TA is a model which has a lot of information on it. I'm not going to focus upon that because it could be irrelevant in the present context. I'm going to limit myself to the part which is basically related to interpersonal communication. And the first, paradigm here would be to be able to communicate well with other people. I also need to understand as to what kind of a person am I, and what kind of a person the other individual is. And can we actually communicate? Is there a common platform where will it be possible for us to, pass on messages and information which are not only understood but also comprehended, and therefore the relationship becomes more stable? On the contrary, am I sending messages across to people which is creating some kind of dissonance or discomfort to other people? So that is where we are trying to analyze today. Since it's a recorded session, so I will not be able to ask you certain issues, to discuss certain issues with you, but I'll try to communicate in whatever easier way to you, and make you understand as to what happens when we are communicating with each other. So let me start with a few statements which I would have generally asked you to respond to if we were in a live session, but since it's not happening, so I'll pose these statements to you, and I would try to respond to these statements myself, and then try to arrive at some kind of theoretical construct. So let me start sharing the screen with you, and then ask you these questions, show you these statements. So the title is Understanding Interpersonal Communication via Transactional Analysis. Now, certain statements that I would have liked you to respond, but just go, and maybe when you are in the session, try to answer these statements for yourself, and you will be able to arrive at some kind of analysis. So and these are all routine, everyday kind of situations that I have picked up from the environment. And my question to you is if you are in a similar kind of situation, how will you react or feel like reacting? One of the major issues with we as human beings is that many a times we are not able to react, to a stimulus immediately. We because of our own personalities. Simple reason is some of us are reactive. Whenever there is a statement is thrown to me or thrown to us, we react immediately, and in an aggressive way, or in an empathetic way, or neutral way. That depends upon the kind of personality you are. But many a times, some of us are not able to react. We just keep on thinking, oh, I wish I could have done that. I should have, immediately given it back to the other person if he was trying to misbehave or, miscommunicate with me. But, that's just in the thought. So there are two ways of reacting. One is physical. We call it a social reaction, that I immediately react to a stimulus or a piece of message that is reaching me. The other is psychological. When it's psychological, then I am more, I'm just thinking, I could have done that. I'm sure many of you, many a times think, "Kash, maine ye kar diya hota. I should have done that. I should have reacted. I should have answered him back or her back." So both would be fine with me. So if you are in a similar kind of situation, how will you react or feel like reacting? The first situation is if someone younger misbehaves with you. I mean, obviously, if someone younger misbehaves with me, I'm going to be angry, and I'm going to tell this person to behave himself or herself. If it happens to be my student or my child or somebody who's younger than me, I'm going to make this person realize that this behavior is unacceptable, and maybe try to, if I'm too harsh, I'm going to maybe teach a lesson to him, or I would give him or her my peace of mind and tell him to handle his behavior next time in a better way. The point here is that if somebody younger than me is miscommunicating with me, I would generally operate from the domain of setting him right. I have to tell him that this behavior is unacceptable. You can go back to your classrooms and see if student misbehaves with you. What do? You just throw him out of the class, or you penalize him in whatever ways. Why are you doing it? Because you want to set him right, because you want to make him understand that this is not acceptable to me. So second situation, if someone needs your help. So if somebody who is in a desperate need for some kind of support from me, maybe a student of mine is prepared for the exam and suddenly loses all the data that he has, or he needs a book from me, or maybe a friend of mine who is going through a financial crisis and seeks some kind of financial help from me, or maybe I'm walking on the road and I see a person who's wounded or is met with an accident. Maybe I would try to help him, or at least think of helping. maybe I'm driving and suddenly I see an accident. There is a person who's bleeding and wounded. I wish I could stop my car and take him to the hospital, but I'm already running late for the meeting. So at least there was a thought that I want to help this person. So if somebody needs my help, and reactions will vary, obviously. Each one of us will have a different way of handling the situation. Right now, I can only talk about myself. So if somebody needs my help, I would like to maybe go out of my way to do something for him or her. And that also depends upon who the other person is. If this other person happens to be someone close to me, my help is going to be genuine. I would like to do that. If somebody is a stranger or an unknown person to me or somebody whom I don't like, then my reactions are going to be different. I will think within me, I wish I could help, but I don't want to. I wish I could help, but then I'm running short of time. There's a time limitation. But the point here is, if somebody needs our help, most of us would like to reach out to this person and provide him the kind of help he or she wants. The third situation, while taking a decision for the benefit of the organization, what will you do if you were in a position where you were asked to take a decision for the organization which is going to be beneficial? Now, in this particular context, most of us are going to be rational. I mean, I'll have to have data, I'll have to have information, I'll have to analyze, process all this data. I can't be taking an emotional decision. I can't be taking a decision by intuition, a gut feel. Because it's not my life. I'm talking about an organization for which I work. Any decision taken for the organization on an emotional tone or on the basis of intuition could damage the organization. So what we do is we gather all the data, we try to process all the data, analyze all the data, come up with the best possible way, best possible decision that could, I generate alternatives, I try to evaluate each of these alternatives, and then I, depending on its pros and cons, and then I take the best possible decision that is going to be beneficial for the organization. So what I'm doing in this particular situation with another colleague of mine or my subordinate of mine or a boss of mine is we are sifting through the data. We are trying to analyze through the data, which is going to be beneficial for the organization. So I'm going to come back to these situations a while from now, and try to see how does the model work. When you get a good raise in your salary, the first situation, and I have picked up very, very common situations that could be applicable to all of us in the organizational setting. So when you get a good raise, you're happy, you're excited, you're running around, and depending on the kind of personality you are. So maybe now you are mature, you think you are mature, you're adult, you should not be doing it, but then go back to your 10th standard, 12th standard, when your results came and you had scored wonderfully well in your school, maybe got a rank. So you were running around and you were calling up people and your parents were excited, you were happy, and you wanted to celebrate, throw a party and go out with a friend. So what I'm trying to here basically say is that when something good happens in your life, you want to just relish in it. And then you don't think about, oh, let me collect data, let me analyze the data. You just go out and have fun, spontaneity. You become very spontaneous because that's what, and emotional, right? And similarly, when something goes wrong in your life, you're upset, you are disturbed, you're sad, that's a kind of emotion as well. Then there is no, on the discussion on emotional intelligence, we did say emotions are spontaneous. They're not planned. We don't plan for oh, now I think I need to feel happy. Oh, now I think I need to feel sad. Now I think I need to get angry. It depends on the stimulus. There is a stimulus which provokes you. If it's a positive stimulus, makes you happy. If it's a negative stimulus, makes you sad, upset, or angry. So that's emotion, and that's another part of my personality. And the fifth and the last is when your superior is being unreasonable. Many of us would just comply and say, sorry, I'm really sorry for, annoying you, or when he's shouting and he's wrong, he's at the wrong foot, he is not speaking sense, but still he or she happens to be your superior, your boss. So most of us will comply and apologize for no fault of ours. And that's how the system has taught us from the day we were born. the parents in how at home, the teachers at school, the bosses in the organization, we were taught to comply, we were taught to be obedient. Sometimes some of us have that rebellion streak in us. We are not, I am not going to take it lying down. How dare he finds fault in my behaviors or my actions or my tasks. I'm going to give it back to him. The rebel in me, sometimes that rebel gets provoked because that rebellion is a part of my personality. We all had the streaks of rebellion in us, but over a period of time this got killed because of the sanctions of the society, the norms of the society, because society would not allow me to rebel. When I was young, my parents would not allow me to rebel, because the moment I showed rebellion, there was some kind of punishment linked with the rebellion. In the classroom, when I tried to when I tried to disagree with my teacher, on certain discussions, and I was thrown out of the class. And similarly, today in my workplace, if I try to take my position, and even though I'm right and I know the boss is wrong, but the chances are that I'm going to be penalized for my actions. So when your superior is being unreasonable, either you give in, you cave in, and you apologize for no fault of yours, or you rebel. Now, there are 5 situations. I'll call them as 5 stimuli around us, the stimulus around us. In the first case, the young person, my child, my student, my subordinate is the stimulus who is misbehaving with me. In the second case, my friend, my student, somebody needs my help. In the third case, the organization is the stimulus which has asked me to take some decision for it, so that it benefits out of it. In the fourth case, the raise given to me by my boss becomes a stimulus which makes me happy and excited. In the fifth case, my superior is a stimulus who's being unreasonable with me. Let's see how the entire psychological process takes place. Now, let's look at the communication process now. There is a stimulus which is in the form of a younger student misbehaving, which is in the form of a friend asking for help, which is in the form of organization my boss asking me to take a decision for the any activity for a project. In the fourth case, it is the boss giving me a good raise in my salary. In the fifth case, it is my boss who's misbehaving with me. Now, whenever these kinds of stimuli are there is an energy created in me. This energy could be physical or psychological. Now, when it is physical, I end up reacting. I react. So if someone younger misbehaves, I want to give him, I slap him on his face and say, hey, this is not the kind of behavior that I expect from you. Or this energy could be psychological. When it's psychological, it's subtle. That means I actually wanted to slap him, but I didn't do it. So this energy could be physical, when you actually end up taking an action, or this energy could be psychological, when you felt like doing it. And that's why I asked this, how would you react or feel like reacting? When you react, this energy is physical. When you think of reacting, this energy is psychological. Now, very interestingly, this model presumes that this energy that got generated because of the stimulus will invoke any one of these components of my personality. Now, this is interesting. The Sigmund Freud, I'm sure some of you have heard his name. Sigmund Freud is the father of human psychology. Sigmund Freud very interestingly said that our human mind comprises of 3 components. We have id, ego, and superego. Id, ID, it's a German word. It is the child in me. Now, how does a typical child behave? A typical child's behavior is child is demanding, child is excited, child is innocent, child is never satisfied. Those are the typical, a child, you can just imagine a 3 or 4-year-old child. What is the typical behavior of a child? It's like, it is spontaneous. It doesn't bother about your reputation. If it's your child, it doesn't bother about your reputation at any place. It just behaves the way it wants to, without any inhibitions. Now, the point is, do we have this child in us? Yes, all of us have this child in us. A part of my personality behaves like a child. So when I go out for shopping, I see a beautiful dress or a sari hanging, in the showcase. I want it, demanding. I want this. I wish I could have this. This is a child in me. So when my boss appreciates me for my work and I'm happy, I'm thinking, wow, I got compliments from my boss. This is a child in me, because child is spontaneous. It doesn't plan anything. Typical, go with the chronological age of a child, and you will be able to analyze what a child does. Id. So Sigmund Freud says the id in us with which we are born, the first response of the child when it is born is it cries. Crying is an emotion. Doesn't even bother if my crying is, and there are 10 people standing in that room where the child is born. The child does not think that I should not cry. But when we grow up as adults, we curtail these emotions. We don't have to cry in front of people. People will consider me to be a weak person. Id in me. Then Sigmund Freud says there is a second component of ego in all of us. Ego is the adult. How does a typical adult behave? Adult is rational, the mature part of my personality. Rational, it is objective, data-based. Information relies on information, not on gut feel or intuition. An adult is also, whenever taking decision, does not go by what it feels. It goes by what actually is. A child will act on the basis of what it feels. An adult will behave on the basis of what it is, what is there in the information that is available. The ego, the Sigmund Freud's ego component of human personality. And then there is a superego. As Sigmund Freud says, the third component of our personality is superego, the parent in all of us. Now, how does a typical parent behave? You as parent, or you can recall your own parent. How do they bring you up? They bring you up by being there for you. Whenever you need them, they're there for you. But it's not just being there for you. They also criticize you. They control you, isn't it? I mean, if your child wants to go for a party, a daughter who's 13 years old, and she says, I want to go for a party, to my friend's house, which begins at 7 o'clock in the evening. No, you're not going. No ways. The parent. That's in you. That's your personality. Now, and then that we'll see how it ultimately influences the process of communication with other person. So this parent is something which develops over a period of time. Superego. Now let's go back to those 5 stimuli. When in the first case, when somebody younger misbehaved with you, energy got generated. You wanted to set him right. The parent component of your personality got provoked. How dare he does? That's what parents do. Parents want to correct your mistakes. They want you to fall in line with what is right, what is appropriate, what has been decided by the society to be appropriate, the religion to be appropriate, the value systems to be appropriate. That's the parent. So when somebody younger misbehaves with you, you want to make this person learn that, understand that his behavior is unacceptable. That is a parent's role. Similarly, when somebody needs your help, that's again parent. First was the critical parent, then there's a nurturing parent. I'll come to that slide just a minute from now. This is, remember your parent. They did take care of you. They were available. They were there for you whenever you needed them. That's the parent in you. When your organization seeks some kind of decision making from you, you are operating through your adult. Adult is rational. Adult is objective. Adult is logical. Adult relies on data, on information, does not go by gut feel or intuition. So when organization is asking you to complete a project or take certain decisions, you're operating through your adult component. And then when you get a good raise in your salary, or you're happy, excited, when things are not right in your life, you want to cry about it, or when your boss is being unreasonable, you want to fight it out with him, argue with him, or you want to comply with him. That's the child in you, because child is spontaneous. Child just reacts on the basis of whatever stimuli are coming around him or her. So on the basis of these stimuli that are around you, any one component of your personality can get provoked. Now, your communication process will depend upon which component has got provoked, and we'll see that later. Let's try to look at this personality of each one of us in a different way. This is the total structure of the personality as given by Eric Berne. Eric Berne says there are three components: parent, adult, and child. Parent is of two types: the critical parent and the nurturing parent. Most of us, I'm not saying all of us, most of us would associate the critical parent component with father in our family. The father was, somebody who was critical, who was controlling, who was dominating in majority of the households. And the nurturing component of our personality can be associated with the mother, who was always there, who was taking care, who was nurturing. And parent is something that we learn. It's a taught component of our personality, something that we were not born with this parent. I mean, a child is not born with the parent component in its personality. We learn it. We learn it from our parents, we learn it from our teachers, we learn it from our religion, from society, do's and don'ts, ethical and unethical, moral and immoral, totem and taboos. All this is parent, and this is there in me, whatever age I may be in. Let's see how the critical parent component gets transferred. And if I recall, when I was young and I was maybe preparing for my 10th standard board examination, I was sitting in a room with cooler and fan and lights on. It was a Sunday and I was studying, and it was 1 o'clock already. And suddenly, I heard my mother calling me, come for lunch. And I rushed out of the room. I did not switch off the light, fan, or the cooler, anything. I just rushed to the dining table. The moment I sat on the dining table, my father asked me, have you switched off the light, fan, and the cooler? And my response was, no. That was a trigger. And the moment I said no, his response was, do you know how much electricity bill we pay? Have you got any idea? I mean, how many times have I told you that whenever you move out of the room, you have to switch off the cooler or the ACs or the fan or the lights, but you will never understand. Now, this is the critical. He's criticizing my behavior. Now, what's happening? I mean, I am at the receiving end. The communication is happening with me. I'm at the receiving end. And, slowly, this message that is being passed on to me is, whether good or, good, bad, or whatever you want to call it as, is getting recorded in my mind. This message is getting recorded in my mind, and in small, tiny, invisible, tiny cassettes, tapes. It's recorded there. And then it's just there. It lies there for 30 long years, 30 years, 30, 35 years. It's there somewhere. And similarly, there are similar kind of messages. Sometimes they come from a teacher, sometimes they come from they came from my grandmother. Whenever somebody was trying to set me right, somebody was trying to make me learn the appropriate behavior or actions, these messages were getting recorded in my subconscious mind. This is how the human mind works. Now, say for example, 30 years have passed. And I have a daughter, who's now sitting in a room and preparing for her 10th board exam. It's not cooler anymore. It's an air conditioner now. The bills are higher. So again, same situation. It's a hypothetical situation that we are trying to analyze. And, same way, it's Sunday and it's already lunchtime and lunch is ready. I call her and I say, come and have lunch with us. She just runs out of the room without switching off the fan, AC, and the light. And she sits on the dining table and I ask her, have you switched off the AC? And she says, no. Again, the button of the recorder that was there in my mind, something that I had learned 30 years back by my father saying this to me, is played on now. Same statements. Can you never switch off the AC when you walk out of the room? Can you never? Don't you realize that, you're wasting so much of electricity? Do you even understand how much of electricity bill are we paying? Wow, I'm wondering, where is this information coming from? I'm really surprised as to why am I speaking this language? I didn't even know that I could speak this language. It's the tape. It's a sub in my subconscious mind, which was lying idle for 30, 35 years. And suddenly there was a similar kind of trigger, and the tape's button is switched on and ready to play, ready to go. That's the critical component of my personality. So when I ask a student to, when he's looking into his mobile while I'm teaching, and I ask him, don't you know how to behave in a class, in the classroom? Maybe, when I was young, I was sitting in the classroom, I was doing some mischief. My teacher might have said this to me. Subconscious mind, it's recorded there. Whether it's good or bad or appropriate or inappropriate, I have no control over it. Similarly, about nurturance, when I was young and I was not well, in the middle of the night, my mother tiptoed into my room. She touched my forehead. She's not feeling at all well. We need to do something. Nurturance. I learned it. I picked it up from there. And today, when my daughter is not doing okay, the nurturance comes in. The tape gets played. I need to take care, whether it's for my anybody around me, whether it's my brother or sister, father, husband, friend. Nurturance comes in because that was taught to me that you have to take care of people. Taught. The parent component is the taught component of my personality. And then the adult. This is all in me. This is all in you. All these three components are a part of your personality, which are going to affect your communication with other people. And just 5 minutes from now, we shall see how. Adult is the thought component. Thought means cognition, your own brain, your own ability to analyze, to process the information that is given to you. That maturity, adult is always correlated with the word maturity. When you are an adult, you should be mature. So that's the thought component. That means you are basically relying on this information available to you, around you. You are not going to, focus upon your intuition. The moment you focus on your intuition, it's not adult anymore, it's child then. You are operating from your child component. I hope it's clear to you. So this is the thought component. And so all your thinking, all your cognition, all your brain activity is a part of the adult component of your personality. Most of us, especially during our working age, for example, from the age of 25 till about 55 years of age, we generally operate from our adult, especially at the workplace, because that's what is expected out of us. And then there's a third component of my personality or our personality, that is child. Child is the seat of all emotions, felt component of your life. Now, the child is of different types, like parent had 2 sub-part of it. Child has 4 sub-parts of it. The little professor is the creative, the curious component of my personality. All of us are curious people. There are a lot of questions in our mind in terms of why, what, where, how, when, and we want these questions to be answered. Some of you who have young kids at home, sometimes you get stressed by the number of questions that they ask. Don't blame them. That's the component of their personality. They will ask questions for everything. Why is the sky blue? Has somebody painted the sky? Why can't we fly? Why can only birds fly? And you really sometimes get so bogged down as to how can I answer these questions to this child? So what we do in the process is we kill this creativity. As parents, as teachers, we do not allow the child to express his or her creativity. We kill it. Simple example would be, say you have gone to the market, you have a 5-year-old son at home, you've gone to the market and you saw a remote operated robo or a car costing about 7,000 rupees. And you felt emotional, you wanted to buy it for your child, you brought it home, you gave it to him, he's so excited and happy, the best mom, the best dad, wow, and he starts playing with it. For how long? He clicks the button of the remote, the car moves, the robo comes behind him, he keeps on moving from one room to another room. After half an hour, that's the threshold, that's the saturation. After that, he wants to know how this machine works. The little professor in him gets provoked. I want to find out what is there in this machine. How does this remote work? And the moment the adults are out, his toolbox is in. He wants to open and see how this machine works. Suddenly you walk in and you see your 7,000 rupees going down the drain in just half an hour time. The only thing that you do is maybe you snatch the toy from him or maybe give him a slap and say, you don't know, I'll never buy anything for you. You are no good. And you snatch it from him and keep it on the highest shelf. That's all. You've killed the creativity and the curiosity of the child. He was curious. He had some doubts in his mind. He wanted to clarify. I'm not saying that give him permission to experiment with that 7,000 rupees toy, but what you have done, unfortunately, in the process is killed this creativity in the child. So most of us do not have this creative element operational at an adult age, because then teacher does it very well in the classroom. If you try to be asking questions, raise your hand, you get a glare from her or him. Dare you ask me a question again, I'm going to throw you out of the class. Curiosity is dead, creativity is dead. And then there's a second component of free child. Free child is spontaneous. It doesn't really bother about you. You're going to somebody's house, you have a 4-year-old son or a daughter, you tell him 100 times, we are going to somebody's house, behave yourself, until unless they ask you 3 times to eat something. Don't pounce on, the other things that they're offering to you. The child has learned it. He's very well behaved. He goes with you. The auntie there says, beta ye le lo. He says, no. Nani le lo, no. And no, please take it. It's for you only. Then he looks at you and says, can I take it now? It's already 3 times. That's the spontaneity, the free child. Doesn't care about your reputation. We are bothered. People should say, and in the meantime, you've already said, Arey, he doesn't eat anything. I'm really worried about him. And suddenly after 3 times, he's pouncing on the plate and, eating everything in a way you could not even imagine. That's the free child. And it's there in all of us. Sometimes we do operate from our free child component. And then there's a rebellious child, which stands up against the authority, says no, disagrees. We all had it when we were young. Many of us were great rebels. We would not allow things to happen the way they were happening. We would stand up against it, fight against it. And then there's a compliant child in all of us, which, yes, sir, Jijana, whatever you say, sir, I think you are the best. I have a lot of things to learn from you. I'm nothing in front of you. That's again a child in us which just complies. When rebellion dies, compliant child becomes alive. Till the time rebellion is alive in you, the compliant child cannot survive. Because compliance is not there at all. Then you are rebelling against anything that comes across your way, if it is not fitting with your way of thinking. So these are the 4 components of child. Now, interestingly, all these components are there in me. All these components are there in you. So if I am interacting with you, if I'm communicating with you, it's not me communicating with you. It's we call this chart as a PAC chart. P for parent, A for adult, C for child. My PAC communicating with your PAC. And let's see how this communication could possibly happen. So let's come down now to because we've understood this is all in me and this is all in you as well. None of us can say, oh, this doesn't exist in me. If it doesn't, maybe it's got somehow suppressed over a period of time because you did not practice it enough. If the curiosity is no longer a part of your personality, maybe you just forgot all about it. Maybe society was harsh to suppress this curiosity in you or rebellion in you. But that doesn't mean we didn't have it. Even today, you may have it, but it might be just suppressed in some corner somewhere. Let's see how the communication happens. There are 3 ways you can communicate with people around you. And that will determine what kind of impression do you generate about yourself and others. The first transaction is known as parallel transaction. Now, in a parallel, there are 2 sets of circles here. So one is the PAC on this side is maybe me, and the PAC on the other side is you. So I'm communicating with you. Now, what happens in a parallel transaction? Say, for example, you happen to be my student or my friend, and then and you are wearing a very nice dress. And now I happen to meet you. So, I'm going to compliment you and say, hey, Rashmi, maybe your name is Rashmi. Hey, Rashmi, you're looking very nice today. Now, what has happened is, if in this case, I hope you can see the arrow here, the nurturing parent in me was complimenting, sent a message to your free child, right? Nurturing parent, when I say, hey, Rashmi, you are looking very nice today. It's a wonderful dress. I'm complimenting you. So maybe the nurturance component of my personality was communicating with the free child component of your personality. And what do I expect in the response? I expect a thank you, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Or is this my friend? Oh, thank you, Kavita. Now what has happened? I complimented you and you sent a thank you to me. Now, the two lines are parallel, open transaction. There are no hard feelings. When we communicate via parallel transactions, there may not be any hard feelings at all. It's an open transaction. Now, when we communicate through open transactions, we generally build up effective relationships. I'm not saying all the time, but generally, majority of the time, the relationships emerge out to be positive because transactions are open. Let me see if say, for example, if my critical parent component is operating now, and you happen to be my student, and I've given you a task and you have not done it in time or you've not done it properly. Now, my critical parent component is going to find the fault in your compliant child or any other component of your child. Look, Latika, I gave you this task. I'm really annoyed you did not complete it in time. I'm communicating. My critical parent is communicating with your compliant child or free child. And what do I expect in return? I expect an apology. If you say, sorry, ma'am, I'll look into it again. I'll try to do something, I'll maybe give me one more day and I'll be able to do something about it. Parallel. I found some fault in you and you apologized for your fault. Wonderful. Our communications are honest, open, parallel. I mean, we can communicate with each other in the future. And a second kind of transaction, let's look at this adult. Maybe, if I ask you what is the time right now, my adult is talking to your adult. Hey, what is the time right now? And you tell me it's 10:42. Parallel. So there is no problem, there is no hitch. So when the component of the personality which is addressed is the one which answers, communication is parallel, there is no problem in terms of our relationships. Our relationships are going to be positive. Let's come down to the next kind of transactions which are crossed or blocked. Same example I'll take of complimenting you. I complimented you. I expected a response of thank you in return. But the response that I get is you do that always. I mean, you're always trying to compliment. I know I'm good. You don't have to compliment me. There is a crossing over now. There is a blockage. I just complimented you and I expected you to respond and say that, thank you. But the response that comes to me is, I know I'm good. You don't have to tell me. Maybe it was your critical or nurturing parent telling my compliant child that I know I'm good. You don't have to tell me that. Wow. There is a crossing. If you see the lines have crossed here, and as a result, the relationship is going to be affected. Relationship is going to be negative now. And my communication process is going to get stalled and similarly, I did not find your work to be good enough. And I said, look, I'm not happy with the way you've done your assignment or your project. I expected an apology and say, no, ma'am, I'm sorry. I think I'll be able to work harder in future. But you say, you are always picking on me. You're always trying to find faults in me. Suddenly again, it's a crossing over. As a result of which, my future interactions with you are going to be affected. Next time I'm going to be, in the first case, I'm not going to compliment you. Even if you're looking at your best, I'll say, ignore yaar. This person doesn't have the courtesy to say thank you. Or in the second case, even if you commit a blunder, I'm not going to point it out to you because you do not have the manners to apologize or say sorry to me. This is what happens in a cross transactions. Results in negative relationships. The third are the worst kind of transactions because they happen at two levels, social level and psychological level. At the social level, the transaction is very smooth. All your sarcasm, all your pun can be clubbed here. At the social level, hey, you've got a promotion. Wow, wonderful, yaar. You are very lucky. I think I need let's go for some party. At the social level, you are speaking wonderfully well. At the psychological level, there is, I don't know, how did he get a promotion? I'm sure he must have made people happy, must have given them some bribe or something. At the psychological level, the transaction is entirely different. And then you are, you do read it. When you're communicating, you understand that this person doesn't mean to congratulate you. This person doesn't have that kind of relationship with you where he would be happy with you getting promoted or a bonus or getting a bonus no, it, but you just cannot say anything, because if you happen to say, I know what you're thinking right now, this person is going to blame you back and say, I mean, you are really very different kind of person. I was congratulating you and this is what you read. I'm sorry, I would not like to talk to you again. Wow. So social level transactions are smooth. Psychological level transactions mean something. When we say the undercurrents, there's reading between the lines. All these come under ulterior or hidden transactions. Right. Depending upon the last part of the discussion here, is depending upon the kind of transactions or communications that I have with people in my life. So say, for example, if I have reached certain age in my life and I've had all good transactions, most of my transactions have been positive with people around me, I develop a feeling of okayness about self. I'm okay. And others are also, you are also okay, because I've met right kind of people in my life. My communication process has been smooth and I have learned a lot from these people around me. So I develop a feeling of okayness about self as well as okayness about others. On the contrary, if people around me have been nasty, if people around me have communicated in a very negative and unhealthy way, they have been mean, they have been arrogant, they have been rude to me, I might develop a feeling of I'm not okay. And also I might develop a feeling of others also not okay. So on the basis of these feelings of okayness about self and others, we have a window in which we put people. There are 4 windows, and all our relationships in life on the basis of the kind of communications that we have had are classified under these. Sorry, I'll just skip this. Just a minute. Yeah. So say on the horizontal axis, there is a talk about okayness about others. You are okay, you are not okay. On the vertical axis, we have okayness about self. I am okay, I am not okay. So when we combine these 4 different parameters, we get 4 different quadrants. The first quadrant is I'm okay, you are okay. All our best relationships in life generate from this quadrant. When the kind of people that I have in life, if I operate from the window of I'm okay, you are okay, relationship is perfect, communication is perfect. Because then I'm not undermining anybody. I'm not, trying to prove that I'm better than you. We are operating at the common platform and we understand each other. There are some people in your life, all of us have some people in our life with whom we operate on the basis of I'm okay, you are okay. But there are some people in our life with whom we operate through the quadrant of I'm okay, you are not okay. That means I have a sense of superiority about me. Maybe I'm more educated than you, maybe I'm better looking than you, I have more assets than you, I've studied in a better college as compared to you, and therefore I have a sense of superiority, and I say I'm okay, you are not okay. Some people in our life fall in this quadrant as well. There's a third quadrant of I'm not okay, you are okay, inferiority. And depends on the kind of people you've interacted with in life, you've communicated with in life. I'm not okay, you are okay. That means there are some faults in me, there are some weaknesses in me which do not make me believe that I could be as good as you. So what I need here is I need your help. I need your support to help me come out of this crisis of non-okayness about self. Right. And the 4th quadrant, I'm not okay, you are not okay, is does not exist amongst normal people. It is if some of us do operate from this quadrant, we need some kind of therapy or some kind of psychiatric care, because this is not the quadrant that should exist among normal people. You could be, I'm okay, you're okay, on the basis of good communications that you've had with people, good relationship that you've shared with people. You could also have an I'm okay, you are not okay, especially in front of people who are your juniors, who are your youngsters, who are still trying to learn, who do not know how to handle a particular situation. So you have a, yeah, I know more than him, I'm better than him. But then also it leads to a little bit of arrogance in you, which again affects your relationships and communication process. And then some of us do operate from I'm not okay, you are okay, because I see people around me who are better than me in a number of ways. So I may develop a feeling of inferiority, but it should be very, very temporary. If it continues for a long period of time, it could damage your own psyche. But this window is not at all healthy at all, because this window is basically leading towards depressive tendencies or anxiety related disorders, because these are the people who believe that nobody is okay in this world, neither am I nor are you. So there's much more to talk in this particular concept of transactional analysis, which is the hallmark of good communications that can possibly happen in organizations. But beyond the scope of time that is available to us here. But basically what I wanted to communicate today to you is, now next time, if possible, if you paid attention to what was being discussed, next time, if possible, try to create a balance between these three components of your personality. All three are important, all three are relevant. Though, I mean, if we were to draw, were to do the analysis of the components of your personality, each of these components, some of you will have your parent, if you look at the picture, the figure that I showed you, all the three circles were equal in size. But if there are different tests available, sometimes later, if we get a chance and we do the analysis of your personality type, we would find some of you have your parent component circle very large. You basically predominantly operate from your parent, and adult and child circle are very small. Some of us may even have a child circle very large, big circle, and a parent and adult happen to be smaller. And some of us will have our adult circle very large. We are very rational and objective people. We don't allow emotions and things to play any role in our lives. Parent and child being very small. What I propose is, let's have a balance between these three. All three are important depending on the kind of positions that you are in. Sometimes you do have to operate through your parent and communicate with people. Sometimes it's the adult which is going to work, and sometimes it's a child which is. And in fact, as a psychologist, I believe, don't let this child component die, because if this component is dead in you and you have not been using it very often, you are as good as a machine. Then you are not a human anymore, because machines are very rational, machines are very logical and objective. Humans cannot be objective and rational all the time. So try to create a balance between these three components so that you get the best out of it. So I'll stop here now, and think if there are any doubts or questions, maybe you can, whatever ways it works in your system, you can have it sent to me, and I'll thank you for having me here. Thank you.